So, a couple of hours ago, the Israeli Prime Minister gave a PowerPoint presentation on his supposed evidence of how Iran lied during the Iran nuclear deal. To give you a very skimmed over, brief, sentence long version of what that is, 3 years ago, or at least close to 3 years ago, it was over the summer of 2015, back when Obama was in office. The U.S. and several other countries decided to partner up with Iran to form a deal in which there'd be a removal of sanctions on Iran in exchange for denuclearation or making it to where the nukes that they were producing were stalled from equipment being gone. And this attracted the ire of many Republicans who claimed that they could have negotiated a better deal where they were given everything. And the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who, as if some of you are familiar, Israel and Iran have hated each other, at least the governments have, since the late 70s with the, what was that, the Iranian Revolution. And it's only become worse since the end of the first Gulf War. Now, the proof that he offered was just, my problem with it is this. If one is familiar with the hostility toward both countries, or rather that Israel has for Iran, why would I believe what you have to say about them when I know that more often than not, your statements and your claims and what you're presenting is backed by bias? I implore you because, I'll even admit that I'm biased against at least this prime minister and the Israeli government to go and watch the presentation yourself and draw your own conclusions. But what I think is really amusing is that I wasn't worried about what he had to say or what evidence he was putting out. I was just thinking to myself about how Trump had kind of been stating that he was opposed to the nuke deal, and that's kind of the thing now where we can't just have two presidents repeat something or keep up a policy unless it's awful. So, for example, Trump will say I'm different from Obama because I want to cut ties with Cuba again, or I want to stop the Iran nuke deal. But that wireless surveillance and the drone strikes and the war in Afghanistan, all that keeps going. That lets you know how different they are. But the part of this to really take away is that a lot of people do not seem to realize the really strange situation we find ourselves in. A lot of people, as I've mentioned on here before, I guess are now slightly more privy to the fact that the U.S. has kind of served as the puppet for Israel, where basically, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, whoever you are, if you so much as critique Israel, you will get criticized by people who call themselves its most ardent defenders, almost to the point of just a cult status, as some kind of anti-Semite or something of that nature. And the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu, they've known each other for decades, has made it to where there's a slightly less chance of that, but also the fact that Trump himself has never put any great emphasis on trying to do anything diametrically opposed to Israel. And I want to specify even further because I keep having to repeat this. I am no fan of a majority of Obama's foreign policy, but this was one of the crowning achievements I have seen in any of these presidents for the last 20 years. You had a deal that effectively ensured for a multitude of years we were not going to have the possibility of nuclear conflict with Iran. And now, because one country's prime minister, goofy, wacky, evil prime minister, might I add, Netanyahu, is opposed to any relations the U.S. has with Iran, be it positive or negative, more so positive. He tries to, goat the conservatives over here. Yes, good. Go against your president and tell them how horrible he is. Just it's an aggravating cycle, and it feels as if it'll never end because we might be able to get him out of power, but thanks to the almost apartheid system over there, you're going to keep having presidents from both parties who will just blindly back anything that Israel has to say. And look, you also have to remember this: the way it's framed by Netanyahu and other individuals who, are in the U.S., usually Republicans who are opposed to the deal. It's as if they would make you think it was just Iran and the U.S. that composed this, when in reality you had Russia and China involved as well, and satisfied with how things turned out. And the Iranian president says, yes, we're not going to bother negotiating this again just because you have another president. So really, you're put in this standstill to where many of the commentators you will hear on the right, many of the commentators you will hear in other countries, are going to try to make it seem as if this was just dirty Obama and whoever the Iranian president was getting together and saying, ha 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 ha, we're going to stop the nukes and you're going to take your sanctions off of us. When, again, it was a multitude of nations that agreed to this. But understand it, and this goes to show you how ridiculous the ego of people at least the American government is. They want you to think, and this is what Trump will tell you, this is a bad deal for the U.S. And this was the same problem I had with the Paris Agreement, except this is on a smaller scale. If this was such a bad deal, why did the other countries like it so much? You want me to believe, and the two of you that are in here, to think honestly, that all of these other countries got together in the back room and plotted out how they were going to screw over the U.S. That was an active plot they all had. It was this group conspiracy to mess with America. Do you really believe that? So I would implore everyone who's checked this out to go and watch the Netanyahu's PowerPoint. I almost forgot I was actually watching the leader of a prime minister. I started to think I was in college or something, just because I've never actually, from my perspective or just from viewing footage of other foreign leaders, I don't recall ever seeing one of them just sit there at a board with the little yardstick and go, if you look right here, Iran says they don't want this, when in reality they have that. That's brand new to me. Um, so thank you for watching. I was thoroughly entertained. And, the cycle needs to stop. But the only way it can is if they impose some term limits in Israel, or we get some kind of leadership that actually will rebel against the current dichotomy of American politics. Because this is an issue that, again, isn't being spoken about. This little, Israel has us by the finger movement of just, no matter who's in there, regardless of party, they will blindly bow down to that country. And Obama, to his credit, actually, in some cases, was a little reluctant to do so, which is another thing I would give him credit for. The problem is Israel received the most funding it ever had under his administration. So, you had a mixed bag in terms of him in that country. Just, I'll do a little bit. I'll give you this anyway. So thank you for watching. I'll have something else out definitely tomorrow. Have a good day.